And I've been muted this whole time. 6 minutes of muted. Thank you, Johnny. There was a mechanical problem I had to fix, and my mic was muted. So let me. Anyway, we'll start. Hi, I'm Nick Tockert with the Historical Fencing Guild. We are made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, all part of our ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled the sword to teaching the art to others. We are also going to be made possible by IndieCD.com, number 3, which will be held in Fowler, Indiana, March 7th. I don't have the flyer on this feed. Let me see if I can just flip some things around to get that to you guys. There we go. Ignore that. There we go. If you want to meet me, talk in person, buy my books, have them signed, have on-site art, and meet other great creators, this is a wonderful time to do so. Okay, and we'll go back to where we're supposed to be. Sorry about that. All right, what we were covering today is a question that came in on the messenger. Because, of course, that didn't throw my rule at all. What do you need to buy and what can you make for what we do, especially for the new people coming in? I'm going to take a essentially skin out approach. Obviously, reasonable undergarments. This is not the time to wear anything elaborate or fashionable. Basically, as close as you can get to the boy short boxer brief format is probably the absolute best. Beyond that, you're going to want to purchase some kind of genital protection. For men, it's a cup. For women, it's a Jill. It's a little different. They're harder to find, but if you can, I heartily recommend one. For men, if you order a cup, you are in a new era of cups where you can find ones that are better tailored to your needs. It can be difficult for men of certain endowments to find a cup that will adequately contain and protect. You can look around. There are some great brands out there. Do not make your own cup. Ladies may need, in some cases, to make their own Jill, but as I have not had to do that, I don't feel as though I should be instructing that, obviously. Now, beyond that, you're going to want to consider heat gear. Heat gear is the brand name for a type of Under Armour. It's elasticized fabric that allows, it's a abrasion resistant heat wicking fabric. It will help prevent sunburn, obviously. It will help pull the liquid off your skin and make it evaporate more efficiently. You will feel cooler in it than out of it. I say this after many, many, many years of using it. The only reason I'm not using mine anymore is I've literally worn it threadbare and I need to replace my gear. Beyond that, you need to purchase a mask, unless otherwise stated by your group. A 300 Newton fencing mask for the vast majority of what we do is more than adequate. As I am an instructor, I have gone for a Sabre Coaches version, which has additional padding and a Velcro liner where I can pull all the padding out to wash it. The additional padding is because my students are more likely to have calibration issues than the people you usually fight, because someone coming new into the sport usually has calibration issues. Okay. This is a good point where we stop and we acknowledge that most groups have a handbook of some kind, a manual, a set of rules that they hold by that are usually included as riders in their insurance. It's a whole thing. That would be groups like the SCA, a Society for Creative Anachronism, the HEMA, ARMA. Most gyms of some sort have that, but most gym-like organizations usually provide their own gear, and you may be responsible for renting it and cleaning it, and then they deal with maintenance and replacing as part of your gym fee. That being said, we will continue on as though you are taking part in the Historical Fencing Guild, which I instruct. The next thing you're going to want to consider, you're going to need a gorget. Now, this is one of the rare ones where, if possible, I encourage you to make one, because while you can easily purchase them, Red Dragon makes a perfectly adequate gorget, throat and neck protector. I prefer the made versions because they actually double as a sort of neck brace. They don't just protect the throat, the jugular and carotid arteries, and the cervical vertebrae. They also provide a brace that will, yes, if right, it does limit your head motion, but it will keep your head and help prevent, not 100%, whiplash from snapping your head back and forth should you again fall or incur a hard shot. So I'm a big proponent for gorgets. I talk about them a lot. I plan to actually dig through my parts and make one on a stream sometime this summer, possibly this spring even. Beyond that, this is where we start getting into what you can make, what you can buy, and what you can buy/repurpose. For what we do, you want heavy gloves. You want a plastron. You can buy a plastron, which is just a piece of plastic. This is absolute minimum that can strap across your back, and it protects your heart from sudden impacts. It protects your ribs from sudden impacts, and it keeps swords from sticking, which can be very damaging. Ask me how I know. So what I'm going to say there, and by the way, Johnny, it is so good to see you in the chat. Thank you so much. I am not sure about why does ice evaporate faster in room temperature than forced in extreme heat. I've never really messed with that. But it's something to look up. It's a little off topic for my show and channel, but it is fascinating. Getting back to, because I had a request. Okay. Body armor. The basics is first the plastron. Depending on who I'm fighting with, many times that and just rudimentary fabric is more than enough for me and, say, Trilaina, or someone who's been trained for a long time and has adequate calibration to be able to fight. However, we're going to revisit that concept because that is like a cup. I don't count that as armor. I count that as necessity. Beyond that, this is where we start getting into body armors. Body armors and protective agents come in a myriad of forms. Usually, something like a gambeson, which is a padded jacket, will be worn. The purpose of the padded jacket is, as described, it's usually made by dual layer resistant material that has had either channels put in and fabric or batting of some sort, fur in some cases, has been wedged it tightly into these channels and then sewn back up to absorb impact, and because it fouls knife blades surprisingly well. Stabs aren't quite fully defeated by them, but it's a lot better than not having it. Beyond that, again, we're going to look at the requirements. I'm going to suggest joint protection. Pauldrons for your shoulders, if you can get them, and we'll talk about that a bit later. Sometimes you can simply get pauldrons and your gambeson has tie-on points where they can be tied on. Sometimes you have to wear a over garment, essentially a pull-on piece of armor, an armored coat, something like that. But you want your main joint areas protected. That's your knees, that's your shoulders, that is knees, shoulders, elbows. And again, you can find this gear relatively inexpensive in sport shops. If you're just starting out and you don't even know about armoring or anything, for light starter stuff, which is how you should be fighting, skating, like skateboard knees and elbows, work just fine. As you progress, and especially if you're going into a more concussive style, your armor needs to match. But this is just bonehead entry level. I have fenced in motocross jackets. I have fenced in chainmail. I have fenced in ballistic nylon, which gave great piercing protection, but no impact protection whatsoever. Lorca segmentata. I have somewhere a beautiful chunk of leather and brass segmented armor, body armor, that I have no idea how it would fit me because my body's changed shape so many times of the recent years that I genuinely do not know. But it's something to look into. For gloves, this is where it gets interesting. If you don't know what to do, I would go with, if you're using, okay, we'll break it. If you're going classical fencing, we're talking small swords, rapiers, sabers to a lesser extent. Heavy fencing gloves will do fine. The cuff should protect your wrist mostly. Anything heavier than that, you're going to want lacrosse gloves. Lacrosse gloves, especially lacrosse goalie gloves, are the simplest, cheapest way to get armored protection. They are not perfect. They are not suited for full bear strikes. Then it becomes a matter of leveling up. All right. We have gone through that. What parts can you make easily? On top of all this, you may wish to wear a chest plate that might negate the need of a plastron. A simple chest plate above chainmail or a gambeson is a considerable elevation in your protected status. And that could be made as simply as cutting out an adequate shape of blue barrel plastic and just putting it on there. Again, you can do it as a full curious kind of front and back that lace together on the sides. You can have it laced directly. You can integrate it into a jacket where it does like a double-breasted coat, and one has a pocket where you can slide it in. Hello, Angelina. There are a lot of ways to do that. Whenever possible, you want hard over soft armor, because hard armor distributes it, but it doesn't absorb it. So you still take the kick of a mule. Soft armor tends to absorb a lot of the impact and squish so that you don't. when you combine the two mechanically, and it seems people say it seems either very simple or very complex process, but it's not either. Your hard armor, provided that it holds and it doesn't buckle, or is it defeated? Is it pierced? Distributes the force, because the armor doesn't want to. The outer armor does not want to transform, so it just moves as one unit. So you're taking something in a small place and you're expanding it over a much larger target, which allows the impact to be easier to absorb, both through the mechanisms of any gambeson or body armor under it, and your own body, that's under that. You can further that by simply taking adhesive and attaching closed cell padding to the back of that. I do this frequently when I'm making armors out of, again, HDPE/barrel plastic. Great stuff if you're careful. It does require a little bit of understanding to truly use properly. And it does have a few extreme temperatures and it don't get along real well. It can get a little fragile. Not as bad as ABS, which will shatter, but not bad stuff. HDPE is pretty awesome all in all, and basically one of my favorite pieces of armor. Now, it's a good point to stop here and talk about how this armor is segmented, because it could be very broad. A large bracer, an elbow cop, either just a plate that is laced down, or something that sandwiches fully around your arm and attaches. These are all ways to do that. Your body can be done the same way. Big plate, smaller plates that are articulated, which means you're taking what would be a large area of space and you're making it out of smaller areas so that you can get more flex. It alters the way the impact is absorbed, but it also allows a lot more mobility. This is where you get, not Lorica segmentata, although Lorica is in there too, lamellar. Lamellar are plates. They're little guys. A lot of times about this big. They're domed, usually with 5 holes. And there are specific lacing patterns where you essentially sew these together with sturdy fabric. Sturdy rope. In this case, I'm going to say paracord. Paracord is beautiful stuff. It's dirt cheap. It's just time consuming. The benefit of this is if a individual plate is damaged, while again time consuming, it is possible to unlace it, replace that plate, and lace it back up, and it saves you significant material costs. It also adds breathability, because as the plates can flex, air can get around. It adds mobility, but if they can flex, they can impact in, which means you have to be very careful, in my humble opinion. There are a lot of people who, if you have a significant enough gambeson and padding behind them, it won't be an issue. Ladies, since I have 2 guaranteed in the chat, you will always want breast protection, okay? You want single piece breast protection. I understand that may be more difficult for some of you to acquire due to your breast volume. I'm trying to be delicate. Yes, I make a lot of pervy jokes a lot of the time. All that stops when I'm dealing with armoring. Okay? But you're going to want an underlayer to greatly limit impacts to your breasts, because impacts to the breast have been just 100% connected as a thing that influences breast cancer in women. And I am incredibly passionate on the subject of breast cancer in women, as my mother is a breast cancer survivor. I want to save all of you as much damage as possible. Not just, that region of the world, though I do greatly appreciate that region of the world. So please keep that in mind. I mentioned lacrosse gloves. If you have the means to get hard armor that would be either sizable enough you don't need padding under it, or fitted armor, hi Dave, that is sized to go over your padded armor. I would never encourage multiple layers of armor if you can handle it. Go with that. Whenever possible, when you're dealing with your hands, you want to as solid a piece as possible as your glove or gauntlet, which means those mitten clamshells, the articulated mitten-looking guys, are your friend. And the reason for this is several-fold. One, it's much harder to have a pinky snap like a matchstick if it is wrapped up with everybody else. You do the kind of things I've done long enough, you see people who've made mistakes, and you see the after results. Okay? You want your armor to be, your gloves, if possible, to be cut together. You can bypass that a bit if the weapons you are using provide adequate protection. So if there's a full cup hilt around your sword of choice, or your that hand is well behind a shield, you may not have to worry as much, but I'd still be concerned because things happen. So in the event that you want the best gloves you can get, the other thing about clamshells is, if they are done right, they contact the hilt of the sword you're holding or the pole arm, and the impact is transferred. I don't know why my camera keeps going out of focus. I do apologize. But the impact is transferred through the arc, just like in a wall arch or a doorway arch, and it anchors into the weapon, and it bypasses the tiny little fingers in your hands. I'm very protective of tiny little fingers in our hands because I've had mine have very bad incidents, and I don't want that to happen to you. Now we're going to go back and lower. Whenever possible, you want some level of, at your middle, something reasonably solid over your kidneys, especially. Kidneys to liver. Anyone who's done boxing, MMA, or just fought a lot knows the horror and agony of a liver shot. Kidney shots, if they hit right, can just kill you. So you really want that area protected. A lot of designs are basically weightlifter belts, big, wide leather that goes over. Now, again, this is for the heaviest and hardest hitting of styles. Depending on what you're fighting, you may not need this, but because this is an open venue, I am going to encourage over-armament, always over-under. I know there are people who fight adjacent to the SCA called two chucks, and I know they armor their joints, head, neck, nether regions, and maybe gauntlets, and that's all. But even they usually have kidney protection. Don't be stupid. Now, if your armor has it built in, you don't need to worry about it. The next part are your hips. Not many people talk about your butt and your hips. Yes, I watch a lot of Andrea Dietrichs. I have trouble saying her name. But yes, if you don't want your butt broken, you want some type of skirting or hanging plate, something to cover that area. Okay? They actually have some very nice, they're geared more for, I want to say, street hockey, but they are padded undergarments. So, they can fill in the heat gear to an extent, but they have padding over the hips and butt area to help prevent dangerous impacts. I actually am, like designing my preferred gear from Amazon right now in hopes of saving up and eventually getting it before I fight. We'll talk more about that towards the end. Knees. You will need knee pads. Your knee pads need to not just protect the front of your knees, but the sides, so they will bare minimum need fins. Some kind of side flank that covers that. Sometimes it's a big joint. This could be problematic when you are dealing with women because as an armorer, the joints in I want to put this unoffensively. People whose skeleton manifests biologically female. I'm talking about the opening, the more open pelvis, the angle of the joints, the angle and tendons in the wrist, things like this. This is not a judgmental issue of gender. This is the sex of a skeleton. Okay? I hope that is clear because I have been accused of being too binary in the past. And I absolutely am not. We're talking mechanics here. Okay? I hope everyone understands that. If you don't, feel free to ask. Maybe I can explain it in another way, or I could address a personal concern you have. That being said, many times women's legs have different muscular shapes. And when a woman's knee bends, there are two muscle areas that can kind of stick out a bit as the knee bends that don't do that usually on a man. This can be very, very challenging to armor, especially if this woman is of a certain size. Okay? Now, I'm not saying overweight, because a strong body doesn't necessarily look like a lot of people think it does. But the mechanics mean that your knee armor may need to have a measure of flex on this axis. So if the knee, how do I want to do this? I don't really want to get the sketch drawing pattern out, but I may have to. Okay, we'll use my elbow. Okay. There's nothing sticking out here because it's just my elbow. But on a woman's knee, oftentimes you get more material that sticks out the sides. And you'll see a little bit because I'm chunky. You see the pudge? Yeah. That still needs to be protected. And in fact, that needs more protection because what you never want with a hinge joint, when you're protecting a hinge joint, there are two ways to destroy a hinge joint, primarily. And again, they're excessive. But you're most likely to either overextend, it doesn't go any farther. If you make it go farther, bad things happen. Or you take a blow and a hinge joint that's meant to go like this bends on the wrong axis. Bad berries. That's why you need a fin to make sure that's protected. It may have to be articulated. Figuring out how to armor my wife's knees has been a passion of mine and an engineering project as long as I've known her, since before we were dating, basically. As soon as I heard about this project, I've been working. I probably have a dozen prototypes floating around trying to make that problem better because their version was just to make her knees better, and then they'd have all the side flapping when she wasn't kneeling, and they'd catch each other and lock up. But it's still something I'm working on, and I'm okay with that. Now, to protect the thighs, which can usually are fairly sturdy, you can have plates that go across the top into attached into the knees. hang off of a belt on the hips to distribute the weight across as much as possible. And so it doesn't just dig in shamelessly into the what would be the greave, the shoe portion, so the front of the shin and shoe. As to that, shin guards are wonderful. Very rarely does the lower leg get directly attacked. Largely it has to do with reach and the angles that people fight, but rarely below the knee gets attacked in most sports and situations. But when it does, especially if you are engaging in something more aggressive, there are nerve clusters there that can go into absolute agony. We are talking literal debilitating pain. So you want that. You also, if at all possible, you will be fighting in closed-toed shoes. You will not be fighting barefoot with weapons around me. Yes, I know a great many martial arts traditions do that. I know a great many martial arts traditions have always done that. And I know people will cite left, right, and center. That is good. Those people have not either experienced having a toe bending out on its own or seen one bent out on their own, or had a smaller digit crushed. Because when everyone else is being relatively smart and at least wearing solid closed-toe shoes, you should be too. The other factor that must be remembered when we talk footwear, and if it sounds like I'm passionate, it's because I have to argue this every season when I take new people, is you will be fighting outside. I do not have the means to have built a guild hall like I'd love. I do not have the finances to make that happen. And I don't expect to anytime soon. Though universe, if you wish to make that happen, I will accept it gladly. Gleefully, that is. However, we will be fighting outside. It may be on concrete. It may be on grass. It may be on gravel. There will always be the possibility of something unpleasant, gross to step on or in, or insects. You do not want a bee sting on the bottom of your foot. You do not want to do like my buddy did and go walking across very, very hot blacktop and literally deglove the bottom of your foot due to third-degree burns, because he was going to be tough and not put on his shoes. So no, you will wear shoes. The other reason is this, and it is an actual practical reason. I believe you should train how you fight. And you should fight how you train. And you should do both the way you live as much as possible. Which is why, when it comes to teaching different stances, I will always be hardline to as neutral and normal a stance as you can hold. Okay? We may make slight adjustments for safety or to improve your balance, but basically routing as much of it as how you would normally walk. And the vast majority of us being in a Western culture, when we are out in the world, are wearing shoes when we do so. Therefore, we train in shoes. If your group doesn't, go by your group's rules. Always go by your group's rules, unless you feel they are unsafe. Now, a great many groups I feel are operating very unsafe right now, judging by the number of weapons breaks I'm seeing and armor fails I'm seeing throughout the HEMA community. stuff is starting to fail. They aren't doing enough inspections. They aren't doing enough maintenance. It is failing. I don't want that to happen to you. All right? So, let me real quick. Oh, if you can have a helmet of some sort that protects the back of your head, groovy. If you can, there are inserts that can be purchased or made that will cover the back of your head in a fencing mask. Also groovy. Now, at some point, you will see me fighting. And you will see me fighting in probably gear that looks like I am being a hypocrite. I understand this. I'm going to get ahead of this. For me, biologically and normally, I have poor heat response. Further, I am on three of the meds I am on that are lifelong. I'm not getting off these meds, are on the heat death list, where dehydration and excessive heat can literally kill me. Another three are on the severely monitored version of that list, one notch down, where it might. Therefore, I have to and will be designing armor that will be incredibly heat friendly, to the point of I am actually trying to figure out how to integrate, and I'm going to be testing the safety of assorted like wearable chill vests that I can swap out as practices go on. If I'm going to keep doing that, a lot of things are going to have to change, and they're going to have to change now before then. I'm making one very hard run at getting this all set up and running right on my home and property. And if not, I will be reevaluating a great deal of what I do and what I am able to do. So for people who are looking for training from me, this is going to be a very good spring-summer area to start making arrangements. That's just the heady truth of the matter. I may have to step back to having to do training, but not actual full sparring, even though I love it. And I have been doing it for a quarter of a century. Thus, someone who's spent their life working with adapting gear and adapting techniques for other people's needs must take that skill set and point it inward. But as I said, I'd be in a wheelchair in 6 months, 20 years ago. I am decidedly stubborn. Now that that's been said, we can go on to gear. Again, if you're part of a group that requires purchased gear, do so. Most have loaner gear. If you are borrowing someone's loaner gear, please slip them a little money. They'll say they don't need it. They say, well, don't want it. Do it anyway, because you are damaging their gear. Every time you use it, everybody is. And if it breaks, you're going to have to find a way to at least offset some of the cost. That's a courtesy. I had someone borrow a rapier and bend at the time a $70 blade, and that was $70 10, 20 years, better than 10, 15, 20 years ago. Oh, no, yeah, because that was, so yeah, real close to 20 years ago. 2006, $70 is I'd have to look up the difference, but it's a lot more than 2026, if you get what I mean. Especially to our finances that time. That's at that time in our life. But do that. Now, again, if you're in a group and they say we use this gear, you're probably going to have to buy from that list. If you are a solo practitioner and you're just starting out, or you're going to learn, there are a lot of options. I have some here. My favorite option for people who are just starting out, assuming you are very careful, is, of course, PVC. This is my anything sword. I can use it to demonstrate just about any sword or weapon style I need to in a very narrow situation. This is just half-inch PVC. And now that I know what I know, I would have spray painted it orange. I still might, but I don't want to get it on the tape. Well, I can block the tape off with masking tape. I might just do that. Because UV breaks up PVC. So sunlight is really bad for PVC. Spray painting it helps keep the sunlight out. Now, as long as you are not going full force and you are not doing thrusts, I have knocked people's teeth out with a PVC piece like this. The gentleman at the time was training as a ninja, and he advanced much faster than even I expected, and I popped him in the face. I was young and dumb. I did dumb things so you don't have to. Still a dear friend, love him dearly. We worked through it. But PVC is a great start. The SCA heavy fighters use this stuff, which you can see this is the untaped part. This is called rattan. And it is a bamboo-like reed substance. You've probably seen chairs made out of it. And they like this stuff because it gets lighter as it dries out. And as it takes damage, instead of splintering, it mushes because it's still essentially a very robust reed. Great stuff, but it's still also like hitting with a baseball bat. Padded weapons can be handy. Here's a very silly variant. I have to redo the tape on the head. This is my random acts of kindness. And this is just closed cell foam that's been wrapped and duct taped. You can use Plastidip and wood weld to make something sturdier. I've learned a lot over the years. I have a little bit of the same tape grip in there to make the grip just a little nicer and give me better edge alignment. This is, of course, again, on half-inch PVC with end caps. The PVC you get at our good friend Menards. You can get a sturdy form of this foam in the form of certain tumbling mats, bed rolls for camping, and the waffle weave, the pattern squishy blocks that they put down as flooring, stuff like that. This is quite old, so it's quite soft and porous. I probably should just remake the whole thing. But it does provide a lot of impact protection. The AmpGuard groups use closed cell foam, and they have a whole bunch of standards, and then they have fabric over it so that you can't get scratched by the duct tape. It is not as perfect as they claim, but it is a lot better than some stuff people use. The SCA tends, again, heavies fight with the rattan. Light fencers fight with either musketeer blades or epee blades, usually. Occasionally foil, usually those. Heavy fencers, like found in the Middle Kingdom, use either what are called rapier blades, Hanway practical blades, or Schlagers, which are a heavy German kind of sparring blade. I come of the era of Schlagers. If you have to do that, you have to buy. If you're training at home, you can make your own gear out of wood if you are cautious with it. PVC. I've done wooden dowels have worked very well at points. Again, if you are going only slow speed to learn technique. HDPE, just the same stuff I was talking about making armor in. If you get thicker chunks, you can make decent trainers out of it. One way we did was we had, it's been a few years now, a contest where we basically took HDPE cutting boards, the thick white plasticky cutting boards, and saw who could make the best trainers out of them. Jim won. I want to say both times. James Robertson, amazing fellow. But you can make a lot of trainers that way. You can make a lot of trainers and attach them to things. Or you can buy. There are myriad of quality trainers on the market. Some are better than others. I am a big proponent of Purple Heart Armory. I have an affiliate link in the chat. However, I always review their stuff completely honestly. To the point that I actually at one point commissioned a trainer to be made. This is that went by the handle, the Italian tactical side sword, and I want to see if I can get him to make me one in the new plastic, because the new plastic is a good deal lighter. But yes, I have two of these, one with weights on the end to make it much lighter, and one with this one, which doesn't. Still one of my favorite trainers ever. Not real suited for thrusts because, again, not enough flex. But you can also go on Amazon and get polypropylene trainers for a low cost. This was one that was given to me by my buddy John, but this is obviously Sting, the Hobbit sword. And I quite like these. We've used various degrees of these. If you deep dive around in my channel, you will find reviews. I still like this one. Now, there are new ones that have been floating around, and I'm seeing two companies. One makes a bit sturdier, and one makes very pretty. The sturdiest ones I've seen, one moment, I am eternally altering my gear. Pardon my lovely look. This is my Vulcan. I believe this is by Wu Jiao. Yep, it's by Wu Jiao. But this is a very sturdy. Look at the thickness of the plastic. It is surprisingly heavy for what it is, but it works remarkably well, and is one of my favorite trainers ever. It's an elegant, refined trainer for someone who is not quite worthy, and that isn't the Wu Jiao logo, so I'm not sure who made that. I have to look that up. I have a stand for it, however, it was taken out in a stuff slide. Now, there's another company that you can get through Amazon, and they made my first dealings with them, really, was this lovely gin trainer, and I'm rather fond of it. It's right around that sub 50 line. It annoys thesis the way I see sheathed swords. It's beautiful, but it is not nearly as sturdy. And then my personal newest trainer, and I've gone years without buying one for myself, this little beastie, which is a cavalry saber trainer. It is light, it is fast. I have not been able to test its reliability because I've had to practice this spring yet. I intend to. I'm quite fond of this. I'm quite fond of this blade length. I do prefer to have a keyhole grip, but wonderful trainer. If you have more money, there is a company out of Europe called Black Fencer, sold under the auspices of South Coast Swords. They have some amazing synthetic. So plastic, oftentimes extruded nylon trainers. If you like heavier fighting styles, I definitely love the Red Dragon trainers. They're great. They have a steel core, extruded nylon body. They have flex to the first third of the blade. They're about bulletproof. They're just heavy. Most of mine live out in the garage. I have a couple in the house because they happen to glow in the dark, and I needed them for a bit of shtick. However, consult with the manual of the group you are participating in. If you have questions, ask them. If you don't have a group, feel free to ask me. I love to be of service. Beyond that, guys, I'm about done with this lecture, and I'm not getting any questions in the chat. So thank you to the 4 folks who have stuck around. I know my Friday night schedule has been erratic. The house is just bouncing a very bad version of the flu around, and I'm taking care of everybody. So it's taking a bit out of me. Fortunately, Mandy and Xander have been stable enough I could come in here and do today's stream. I genuinely appreciate all the people who came in the chat. Thanks, huge amounts of thanks to John for catching the mute. And I hope to see you guys next week discussing this. There will be something at this time slot. I will either do a live stream or I will have a pre-recorded video that I set up earlier in the week. And I'll run it in this time slot. That's the master plan. This has been a very busy broadcast day for me. I'm, I think, on my 3rd or 4th hour. So I'm going to call it here and go back and enjoy the rest of my Friday the 13th. I want to remind you guys that there will be a convention in Fowler, Indiana, March 7th. 10 till 8 at the Purdue Extension or Benton County Extension in lovely Fowler, Indiana. Flyers will be going out and other things going on in the near future. I hope to see many of you there. And if I can't, I hope to see many of you on the field. So guys, keep your guard up. Keep your eyes open, be kind to yourself and each other, and as always, thank you for supporting your local sword master. I will see you all very soon. I will be updating the names scrolling across the bottom by next week for the folks who may be wondering. And I'm still planning to do some material with the Patreon exclusive material coming up very soon. I will give more information on that as it comes to fruition. Good night, folks.